Hi guys, today's video is all about listening. I thought I'd do a quick little video on how to create some good listening skills in our relationship. So the other day I asked a couple this question: what do we hear and what is actually being said? And the reality is, more often than not, there's one thing we hear and then there's what's really being said. And we want to get to a place where we're able to hear what's actually being said and what's right in front of us, instead of just jumping into assumption making or defensiveness. And a lot of times when we just jump into the negative, it's because there are negative things happening in our relationship. So when there's negativity going on, there are other components that are actually being communicated. And with negativity, we are more quick to jump to a reaction, just kind of defending ourselves, or we're more inclined to just jump into what we want to say next, or we make those assumptions of what the partner's going to say. So we already know what we're going to say. It's like we're planning this attack defend instead of actively listening, or most importantly, listening to understand one another. What makes up good listening in a relationship is just that. Are we listening to understand where where the partner's coming from, or where your spouse is coming from? If we just listen to hear instead of listen to what is actually being said, we're actually listening just to react or respond, instead of listening to understand your partner's perception of what they think is going on and creating space for a much better conversation. So, it's what are some ways that you can get to the spot of listening to understand? Dr. John Gottman, he talks a lot about different techniques. One of them is the importance of empathy and validation first. And I know I've said this in a lot of my videos, where I want you to take time to sit with your partner and try to listen to understand, one, but also the first thing you say back to them could be an empathetic statement or a validating statement, especially when there's intensity in the conversation or there's anger. If you take a moment to empathize or validate your partner's position, it helps de-escalate the situation. And empathy and validation doesn't mean you agree with them. It just means I'm here in this moment with you, and I want to understand, or I want to hear where you're coming from. I want us to work on compromise. I mean, there could be so many different things that you communicate by just saying an empathetic statement or validating statement. And I understand in the heat of the moment, that can be really hard to do, but that's also one of the most important things to do. And if you're way too flooded or way too escalated, then it's your responsibility to tell your partner, I'm flooded, I need a break, and I'll come back to you in 30 minutes. I know in some of my conflict videos that I've discussed before the importance of a break, so I refer back to those, if you want to look into that further. But, some other techniques besides empathy and validation are really, setting up a couples meeting and going through what's going on, and being able to state clearly how you're feeling or what you need, and to the person that's listening, again, going into, I'm going to listen to understand where you're coming from, and reflecting back, some of those basic active listening skills. So what I hear you saying is, or help me understand more about where you're coming from, or tell me the story of how you see things. Even saying those statements helps create more space to listen to understand one another, or to listen to understand your partner's position. And to read between the lines when you're having a conversation. One, again, don't assume. Two, if you're angry, it's harder to read between the lines because you're just going to jump into your perspective or your assumptions or your position. So ask questions. Don't make assumptions, ask questions. If you don't understand something, ask, like, I don't understand. Or if you want to make sure that your partner hears where you're coming from, ask them. And don't say it in a way that's critical. Just, hey, what did you hear? Or I really want to make sure you heard my perspective. Those are ways that you clarify. So again, when you're having a discussion in your relationship, I want you to jump into it saying to yourself first, how can I listen to understand what's actually being said? If I get defensive, if I get flooded, that means that something about me is triggering and I gotta let my partner know. So instead of attacking them or putting them down or being overly critical or just jumping into defensiveness, I have to say things like, I'm feeling flooded, I need a break, let's come back to this at our couples meeting. So you're not closing them off and you're not shutting out the conversation, you're just saying, I need a few minutes to cool off and then I will come back to you. And, the importance of empathy and validation, again, in the heat of the moment, I know that might be hard, but it's one of the most important things you can do is, ask yourself, what are some empathetic statements or validating statements that I can communicate to my partner? I'm here in this moment with you, instead of I'm defending, I'm attacking, I'm overly critical, or I'm disconnecting from you. So those are some important steps. So again, just to be clear, listen to understand your partner's position. Don't make assumptions, ask questions. And the importance of empathy and validation. All of those things go into how to have a good conversation and how to be good listeners to each other. All right, don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you want weekly updates all about relationships, and comment below and let me know what you think. Have a great day.